Well, welcome back. This is center stage at Beth Israel, the West Temple in Cleveland, Ohio. We're in Ratner Hall, a little different setting than we've had before. We have two really important guests today. One I'll call our local expert, and one we'll call the expert from the Jewish Educational Center. This is Rabbi Schlein, and of course, our own Debbie Chessin. I thank you both for taking the time out of your busy days to spend some time with us talking about educating Jewish children, which to this building is what we've lived for our 60 some odd years. And I hope we can have an enlightening conversation about how we educate our children, the challenges that you both face in your different jobs, and how we can not just look back, but move forward. So, is it okay if I call you Rabbi Schlein?
Yes, thank you.
Tell everybody how a rabbi determines that going to the education side rather than the Bema side was what you wanted to do.
So I grew up here in Cleveland. I went to Fairmont Temple, and my parents were very active and involved. My father was the chair of the education committee. My mom was a religious school teacher. I became a madricha, a teen assistant working in the school, and we all progressed and went on to additional other things, but being connected to the synagogue and Jewish education was it's in my DNA and part of my active life. And so when I decided to become a rabbi, as part of it, I always had an educational piece. I was always teaching. I was doing different family education programs. I wanted it to be a big core component of what I was doing. And in fact, when I was deciding if I wanted to be a Jewish educator or a rabbi, I was in college. I was at Indiana University.
Oh, what university was that?
Indiana University.
Oh, okay. They have a football team there.
They have a fabulous football team. There was a very exciting evening last night.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
An important educational digression, for sure. But when I was there, I had this whole, as you do, as a college student, trying to figure out, do I want to be an educator? Do I want to be a rabbi? And I came home to talk to my rabbi, Rabbi David Gelfand. I was having a crisis because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. We had a whole conversation. We're pulling back into the temple, and he dramatically, as we pull in the driveway, he slams on his brakes. Because I had said to him, I think I want to be a rabbi. And he was like, I'm not surprised. I knew we would have this conversation. And what I love the most about that is that I figured out a way to do both. I didn't have to pick one or the other, and I could integrate the two together.
And then, Deborah, how did you come upon the idea of spending your adult life helping Jewish students, even at a young age?
Even at a young
Tell
age.
me.
Well, for me, somewhat in my DNA as a teacher, both my grandmothers and my mothers were teachers. And in terms of being involved in the Jewish world, I was very active in youth groups, BITWT, Jewish camps, running youth programs as a teen and in my 20s. However, I will say, I didn't take a most direct path to becoming both a teacher and eventually an education director. For those of you who don't know, I actually went to law school after college. I thought I wanted to be. Not a bad choice, but I realized very quickly after graduating from law school, taking the bar and working, that it was really not my calling. And I was really more drawn to teaching, be involved in the Jewish world. I actually started very part-time as a teacher, actually teaching at Temple. At that time, it was called Temple Tiferet Israel. And I taught both in the preschool and the second grade, and then eventually in the Shabbaton program, which is where I met Rabbi Schlein. And we not only, she was my boss, but we got to work together and had the honor of working with her. She was a mentor to me. And I was very fortunate. We talk about mentors, is that I had a number of people in the Jewish world, Maury Greenberg being one, who's now in Israel, Jeffrey Schein, another, who took an interest in me. They said, we agree, you shouldn't be a lawyer, you should be a Jewish educator.
Wow.
And they worked with me, and they tutored me, we studied together, and they really encouraged me to go back and continue with not only my professional development, but eventually going on to get my master's degree,
Wow.
which was in Jewish education as well as nonprofit management. And during that whole time, not necessarily in that order, I had the opportunity to meet Rabbi Enid later, who at that time was the rabbi at Beth Israel, the West Temple. We met each other, took a liking to each other.
How could you not?
And I worked here sort of in an interim year. It was more of a family educator. It was kind of a year for all of us to get to know one another, to make sure it was a good fit. And
Yeah.
then eventually I interviewed and was offered the position of education director. So it was kind of a crazy time because I was not only starting a new job, but also starting my master's program. I also did other professional development things to enhance my skills as an educator, not only for myself, but for my teachers, the
And how long have you
Mandel
been-
Teachers and Educator Institute.
And how long have you been here?
This is going into my 11th year.
Oh, my gosh.
So it really, I felt it was a meeting that was beshert, and
Yeah.
this, for me, this place has become more than just a job. It's become my home, my spiritual home, a place where I feel so connected to obviously the children and our incredible staff, but to so many congregants here. And so I am blessed to be part of this community.
And how long have you been with the JEC?
This is my 5th year that I've
Tell
been
us what
there.
the JEC does. First, let's start for the community at large. What is the role of the JEC?
So the Jewish Education Center of Cleveland is the educational planning arm for Federation. So previously it was the Bureau of Jewish Education, and nationally the organization started struggling and they were transitioning, and across the country each city made a determination about how it would be integrated into the community. Here in Cleveland, it became the Jewish Education Center and the educational planning arm for Federation. So, also, we have like one more day of the campaign, so I have to also ask people to please generously make a donation to Federation's annual campaign, because it does support places like Beth Israel, the West Temple, and all the amazing programs in the community. So the job at the Jewish Education Center is really to pay attention to the educational landscape, all the different kinds of things that are happening. We offer financial support, we have grants, we have funded positions that go to educators in those settings. We also do professional development. We have funding available, so the teachers here do professional development every year under Debbie's leadership. And we also have every other year, we have different conferences that we offer for the educators. We do coaching. We also run professional networks, and Debbie and Beth Israel have been really wonderful at taking advantage in the best way of whatever resources are available. We also have very hands-on things, so I believe you'll be having a retreat, and you've had several successful retreats that have happened over the years with
Sure.
support, and you come in and get the resources from the Teacher Center as well. We also provide support for early childhood. And the day schools, I mean, it really goes across the community. And
Wow.
we try and pay attention and assess what the needs are, figure out ways to support, encourage, and grow across the community.
And I'm going to state, not going to guess, I'm going to
Okay.
state that for all of our years here on Triscuit Road, you have been our education partner then.
Yes,
And we
yes.
probably could never have accomplished past tense, present tense, future tense without you.
That's the goal. We
And
want
that's
to
the
help.
goal.
Right, we want to strengthen this congregation. We
Yeah.
want to strengthen the community at large as well.
How many people work in your is it your building? Are you separate from the Federation?
Yes, we're a separate building.
How many people work there?
We have about 25 people
Wow.
who work at the Jewish Education Center.
So in the definition that you provided, what is your particular role currently?
So my particular role, I have a lovely title. I'm
Yes.
the Director of Educational Capacity Building, which is basically to help build the capacity of the community. My specific areas that I work in are congregational education. We often refer to it as part-time Jewish education. I oversee the early childhood department and work closely with my colleague Jessica Robbins and Lori Coet, who is a consultant for us. I also support our Retreat Institute,
Wow.
run by Renee Goldfarb and our colleague Leah Taylor. And I also support our Teacher Center, which is run by Rana Fox and also Rachel Utley. So I'm the direct support for the part-time Jewish education, and then I work in conjunction with those other 3 segments.
And needless to say, Debbie is on the phone with you frequently.
All the time,
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah.
But if we didn't have someone as energetic, kind, honest, all the things you can say about Debbie,
Yes.
are there some institutions that, for lack of a better term, are not keeping up?
So there's different ways that we can interact. So Debbie is an excellent example of someone who knows about the resources we provide and calls and asks.
Okay,
I know that this is available. How can I take advantage of it?
Sure.
I'm planning this program. Over the summer, we started conversations about professional development. When she's planning for retreats, months and months out, she's already thinking about how to do that. Part of that is just how Debbie is wired and her professionalism and her approach. Sometimes it has to do with the resource that people have available. So while you don't have a lot of professional staff here, there's definitely a lot of passion and interest and energy towards education. So Debbie ensures it happens. Not every congregation's set up that way. So if they don't have as much support from their board, if they don't have the resource, the interest, the time, some places have very part-time people in these roles, that can influence how often they meet with us and take advantage of the resources.
and how wide is your scope? As an example, is it beyond Cuyahoga County's borders, or you're just Cuyahoga County?
I'm pausing only because I don't know if Hudson, I don't know which county Hudson
It'd be
is in.
Summit County.
It's Summit, thank you. I knew it was outside of Cuyahoga. We're mostly Cuyahoga County. Hudson falls almost exactly in between us and Akron, and so they are part of our federation and connected to us.
And is it fair to assume that most cities somewhat sized close to Cleveland have this type of bigger federation and an entity like a Jewish Education Center?
So this is one of my favorite things to talk about. I feel like there should be a game that is created for this because every single city is different.
Okay.
So when I started my role at the Jewish Education Center, I started calling my colleagues who were in similar organizations. But they're all different. So in some cases, Federation itself has an education department. In some cases, what was the Bureau became a separate entity, and it's freestanding, separate from Federation, separate from the synagogues. Some cases, they are like us, that are hybrid. I will say this is both factual and biased based on my own philosophical approach, but there's no other organization like the Jewish Education Center of Cleveland
Wow.
that so heavily invests in the partners in the community with the funding support. There's other places that are set up differently, but we invest so much more funding into the community.
And Jews have a wide variety of opinions, a wide variety of branches of Judaism.
Right.
Everybody has their own vision of what Judaism is. With that question started that way, do you provide your services to any of the Jewish organizations that ask? Chabad, Orthodox, Reform, you name it. Does everybody ask? And do you help everybody?
So we provide across the community because we're
Okay.
representing the community.
Okay?
And really, like, our goal is to educate as many Jewish children as possible. So, for example, I specifically do not support, we don't have part-time Jewish education programs in the Orthodox synagogues, so they don't connect in that way. But most of the children in the Orthodox synagogues go to day schools, and we support, and other colleagues work on that and support them in that way. We do connect with Chabad, and Solon Chabad is in our network because they have a large school. And we also have set up for us an affiliation criteria. So people can't necessarily just knock on the door and say, hi, we want to be connected. There's a whole process that they each go through. Beth Israel, the West Temple, went through one along the way as well in order to be affiliated.
And how does your position fit into what they're trying to do?
Well, very much so. First of all, I consider not only Stacy, everyone at the JEC to be true partners with Beth Israel, the West Temple. For my role, we work together in terms of curriculum support. They provide guidance, working together, preparing materials, consultation, helping to ensure that, whether it's I'm teaching or instruction is developmentally appropriate for our students. A large part of my job that people may or may not know about is that I spend a lot of time writing grants to make sure that we get the funding that is offered to support so many of our programs. I will tell you, and I don't remember the exact percentage, but it is very, very high of the funding that we receive to help support, for example, the Shorish grant for the early childhood educations, the subvention grants for the youth educators, CEF, which supports the educational programs, partially some of the retreats, our Camp Kitov. We have the Retreat Institute, which is yet another grant that offers, so we can have the congregational retreats and other types of family programs, which are so important to helping to not educate our students, engage our families. It's tremendous. Another part of this is that for those of you who don't know my program, you talked about one of the funded positions. I am one of the, I think, few funded positions left in the city, and so grateful for that. So in addition to being paid by Beth Israel, part of my position is funded through a grant, I guess, in the Jewish Education Center. And then there are the professional development, which is so important. I mean, the ongoing training for both myself. I've participated in numerous programs, MTEI, the M Squared, that I am always learning. I consider myself a lifelong learner, never ends. And it's so important for my skills as not only an ed director, a teacher to my teachers. And all of this is made possible through work together, either through programming or grants offered through
You just raised a very
JEC.
interesting point. What about an adult education program? Does the JEC support the adult education programs as well?
So it's a different model. There are
Okay.
grants that are managed and processed through the Jewish Education Center, but basically all the educational organizations either are supported for their youth programs or they can get a grant for adult ed. And if you're doing the youth programs, there's a lot more funding that's available.
So as you know, we're an island here on the west side.
Yes.
We're the only temple to Illyria. There's no temples in the south towns. There's the closest temple was probably BITWT, for gosh sake, if you head east. Is your organization currently aware of the stress that we face because of that? Is that a fair question to ask you, I hope?
100% a fair question. I'm
Okay.
glad you asked it, and we have conversations about it all the time. We actually just had a conversation a couple weeks ago. Federation recently released a population study, and they're looking at and evaluating the growth of the community, how it's growing, where it's growing. And this time when they did it, they divided it out into different quadrants. so that there can be a different way that we're looking at where the population is. We're just getting into the data to figure out what the strategies are to address it. But we know even without looking, you can envision what the map looks like. The strongest population is in the BITWT area, then the Cleveland Heights area, followed by down into like Orange Solon. And there's also been some growth up in growing up like Willoughby and that area. And the population on the west side is much more spread out. So we have, in the map, there's this nice big section, and then the west side, there are these dots. Debbie is definitely a strong advocate for experience for families and for children on the west side. And we absolutely want to start having conversations of how we can best reach people. We know, for example, like one great example, when I came by to visit this year, there was one of the Shorish programs for families with young children, and literally people were like coming out of the room because there's so many families with young children who are opting in. And the question is, who are the other people? We also know that 40% of Jewish people are not affiliated, so we want to know how we can connect with them. In the ideal world, my own personal perspective, we connect them to a synagogue. That's not always going to be the case, and so we want to be able to connect with those who are unaffiliated as well. We hope to be able to build and do that work with the synagogues. We also know everyone has their own capacity, right, and what they're going to be able to manage. But we want the synagogues to be partners with us to help reach out to more children, the more children who can receive deep, rich Jewish educational experiences, the better.
So is it easier then to walk into and counsel and help a temple in Beechwood where everybody's neighbors are Jewish, everybody goes to school with Jewish kids, everybody's uncles and aunts are nearby, and everybody, and not necessarily bigger by unit size, but is your job easier in those communities, or are there different challenges because of all those factors?
There's different challenges, and then also adding in the layer of the readiness of the community to partner.
That's a great word.
Yeah, and also one of the things that really impresses me when I come here, so when I went around and seeing the teachers, there are people who grew up here, there are people whose children grew up here, there's now a teacher who grew up here and now she's teaching. People who've been here a long time. So there's a lot of passion and also support. So some of the lay leaders who are very active and involved on the board are also here on Sunday mornings, pitching in, helping out. So there's a different kind of a connection and a desire to support because there's this understanding, not every neighbor is Jewish, not every resource is there. If we have to drive half an hour to get over to where the bulk of those resources are. So
Yeah.
it's they're just different challenges.
And is it fair to state that there has to be more of a hands-on because of our distinct population of members?
Tell me more, when you're saying hands-on, like what
Well,
kinds of things are you thinking of?
I think of us, even when I was in leadership here, we're kind of an orphan. When we're 20 miles from other churches.
Yeah.
Most of our children were the only Jew in the class at a public high school. We don't have day Jewish studies. We have a Tuesday night and a Sunday morning. And I'm wondering if the only way to make that process work is that everybody is more hands-on, whereas on the east side, it's kind of a pretty decent, well-oiled machine and doesn't need all the attention that maybe we need.
So it's interesting. So, and then when you're saying that as being orphans, then you mean like as the congregation, you have more ownership
Well, I mean, as a
towards
congregation,
connecting, or do you also mean like from the community? I was very taken with that word orphan.
I think our roots are deep here,
Mm-hmm.
only because of the groups we had here in the
Okay.
past 50 years. But we don't have our roots out to the neighboring temples and the neighboring.
It's more consolidated right
It's this
here.
building, and it's only
Yes.
this building.
Right.
And I mean, we're going to talk shortly about the different programs you've worked on, but I'm just trying to affirm
Mm-hmm.
that your attention is different in the different communities based
Right.
upon where all the other Jews live.
Right.
Is that a fair statement?
I think that that's fair. And
Yeah.
also, so part of the reason I was asking about the hands-on, so one of the things I think that sometimes even in BITWT where there are the well-oiled machines, the most important piece is the hands-on, the personal outreach, personal connection. Like I'm turning to Debbie, she's the
Right.
master at this.
And,
She's
and,
the
and
master.
well, and
Right.
as you say that, that's such a huge part of my job. I often spend a good part of my day just connecting with the teachers if necessary, with the families, just, touching base with them, potential new families. And it's that level of, developing relationships, because I think that's what makes us so successful, is that we really try to develop those close relationships with not only with the teachers, but with the parents, with the children, so that they want to come here and be part of things. We also have this, and I think it's ingrained in the culture, really it's in, our vision in terms of who, the history of Beth Israel is that you give back. And so people come here, so it's not only the teachers giving back, who are all volunteer, by the way, our parents, you probably didn't see this morning, pitching in to help, lead a Hanukkah program, and just doing it without being asked, and just creating this, all the kids were working together, so you have this feeling of this closeness, this feeling of community and joy. And that's what we do, I think we do very, very well here, that the kids want to come because they know that this is a place where they can feel comfortable being with, Jewish, learning, yes, but having this sense of community and developing friendships. And that's very, very special, that I don't think you can attain in the same way at a larger congregation. I think that's what makes us somewhat unique.
And I also think some of it is, as we're thinking about this, and we think about it in a layered way. So we're thinking about the things that are similar, and then we think about the things that are different. The geography is very different here, and so then how people are embedded in the communities are different here. And also, we want everyone to think about, it's not just from your building. It's not just we're physically sitting in this lovely space, this historic congregation. It's what happens outside. It's that personal outreach, Camp Kitov program, other things that are happening outside the building as well.
So let's change the scope of the
Okay.
questioning for a few minutes. There's a great word that is used in social sciences, and that is the word innovation.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you're late, sometimes you think you're ahead and you are late, sometimes you're right on the point. How does that word, innovation, come to play when we talk about Jewish education of children?
So it's a huge part of the vocabulary and the things that we talk about. And we're actually, in our Education Directors Network, we're now taking a look at words like innovation and also like history. And there are things that are in tension with one another, that are always part of what you're trying to do. Because if you're innovating and creating and always doing new things, there is this sense that, like if you think of it as a pendulum, if you're doing this, you are losing touch with the history and the relevance and the experiences that happen there. So there's this constant ebb and flow that's happening, and innovation is one of those components. And when we think about it, we think about what are the interests, needs, and values of people now? What are some models that are happening in Jewish education outside of Cleveland? What are models happening in education? What are models happening in the business world? What are things that are happening in general society? Like if we, thinking about the setup that this is happening here and we're being interviewed on camera, you would not have done this 10 years ago, right? Like it's very different. So we're evolving. So we constantly have to be evolving in our thinking as well.
And the innovator is one who doesn't believe in the word challenge because they're challenged by their conduct. They don't have to actively think of the challenge of innovation. It just happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it does seem as though, not just in the Jewish world, not just in our temple, that it is the innovators who end up being the leaders. It is the innovators who, just by some chance, understand things before others do. That being said, are you confident that your organization is innovating one at the right pace for this time?
I feel really confident about it. The reason that I feel confident, we have a brilliant executive, like our CEO, Marlon Jaffe, who she has been involved in the organization for many, many years. She previously was the planning and evaluation person on the Jewish Education Center staff. And so she very much is in the mindset of we have a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. We have goals. We are evaluating. We are constantly adapting.
Yeah.
Each year we meet with all of our partners. We have conversations. We have needs assessment conversations with them to find out how things are going, where they are. We're having these ongoing meetings, so we're connected. So we're connected in, and also it's data. I don't want it to be like, oh, it's just raw numbers, or we have a clear sense of what's happening here at Beth Israel because of what Debbie's sharing with us, and across the community. So it's not something that's just like this plan. We're like, yay, we made the strategic plan. Let's go stick it on a cabinet. We'll just file it here. It's something we look at all the time. The data's coming in from the population study. Great. How does that overlay with what we're doing? So we're constantly adding these different pieces in and evaluating, reprioritizing, so we can really address the issues that we're facing.
Have you,
Go
I
ahead.
was going to ask a question, anything, because I know, and I was played a small role in terms of the educational capacity building research study. Does that how does that tie into your long-term strategic plan vision? What have you learned? Perhaps, I know this might be a question Peter's asking as well, that is going to be useful for, I think it's related to part-time Jewish education?
Yes, so I absolutely wanted to talk about that, so thank you. What we did, we had several approaches. We had a committee, it was a design thinking task force, and what we did, we developed out questions, and we did it in conjunction with the community. We met, I can't even believe this is like January, now we're in December. We pulled together people across the community and we asked them questions about their needs, values, and interests. When we physically did it together, we put posters up around the room with questions. People went through and responded to the questions. And from that, we then developed out more questions and had people across the community. We had 10 different conversations. Some we did in person, some we did online. We had a group for educators, we had groups for parents and children, and we had people come in and respond and share what was most important to them.
Wow.
And so we ended up having 1,200 data points, not 1,200 people. And some people had a lot more to say than others, but 1,200 data points. We had people who were affiliated, unaffiliated as well. And the biggest things that people talked about, and they said that were important to them, were developing social connections, and they also talked about concerns about student well-being. They wanted different experiences that are flexible and that could kind of fit in to their schedule and flexible learning models. They also want things that are relevant and experiential. They like things that are have a family-centered design. So understand who their family is and what their needs are. They're interested in things that are integrated into their hobbies, as well as they're really looking for high-quality offerings. And what was really fascinating, the teachers said in the conversation, they're interested in innovation, new models, different things, new approaches, as long as there is support and they know that there is substance behind it. Like they really care about that as well. Another piece that we found out, there's a real interest in clear communication and understanding of purpose. People want to know why. Even, we did a group with 4th through 6th graders, and of course teenagers. This is the ultimate teenager question, why? Like, why am I here? Why should I be doing this? How is this enriching my life? First we were like, oh, is this like a snarky thing? Like, but no, like they genuinely, like, how is this gonna help me? Why is it important to me to understand about Judaism and its role in my life? That was really inspiring. And there's also an interest in being very inclusive. That has to do with different learning needs. That has to do with people's background. We have people connected in the Jewish community that belong to families that are interfaith. And how do we connect with them? What if we have people that have, what if we have children that have learning issues? What if we have people in our community that are on the west side, who are in the city of Cleveland or the close suburbs? And what about the people who are even farther west, who have like that geographic diversity? So that it's very layered. So the next piece of what we're doing, we're taking this data and this information. It's informing our work we're doing. We're also going to be going to our next phase, which is to pull together the larger community, leadership of places like Beth Israel, the West Temple. Like, I haven't even had a chance to talk to Debbie about this yet. And we're going to be reconvening a group of the leadership teams and giving them opportunities to develop out pilots. Is there a way, is there something that you specifically want to work on, taking from all this data, but specifically what you're experiencing here, to be able to apply to do some sort of an innovation? So we'll offer that
Innovation. There comes that
opportunity
word
out.
again.
Yes, I thought you'd like that.
You did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Let's change the subject to the next quadrant of
Okay.
issues. And that would be, these are my numbers questions.
Okay.
Is it fair to state that the number of open congregations in Kiowa County is less than 20 years ago?
Yes.
And is it at a pace that is quicker now than it was 20 years ago?
That is hard to answer, only because there was a recent merger of two large Reform synagogues, with Fairmount and Tifereth Israel becoming Mishkan Or.
And the word merger means a happy-go-lucky thing, or oh my gosh, we better merge because we're both in trouble?
Of course, they have to answer this for themselves.
Right.
From what leadership has shared, part of it had to do with, I think, recognizing they tried to focus on their strengths.
Okay.
The numbers were decreasing. We
Yeah.
also know the Jewish population is older
Yes.
than it was. And I think there was a sense, if we bring our resources together, if we build together, we're going to be able to provide something more so than we could on our own.
Because certainly Judaism, synagogues, we're not the only ones who are losing members.
Right.
I was at a funeral on Thursday in a Catholic church. The 3 priests were probably 80.
Yes.
The choir looked like they were 85, and I just wondered how many people were there on a Sunday morning or when they had their services. It isn't just us that are losing.
Right.
The
right.
question is, I'm looking at young people, have you been able to identify, is it graspable? What can be done to slow that trend down?
Right, so I also, just because I know people watching are going to be interested and are very studious, so the Pew Foundation has a Pew study on religions, And so you can kind of get in there and see what the different denominations and streams are experiencing. And over the years, there has been less affiliation and less interest. It's not just a Jewish story.
I agree.
And also what was interesting from the population study, when we are looking at how many, we haven't like drilled down exactly, so these are completely, they're estimated numbers, but across each age level, when we think about it and we look at it, like if we take kindergarten, there are roughly 650, 700 Jewish children across all of these areas in Cuyahoga County, and then that little part of Summit that's part of things with us. And if we think about that, there are the students who go to the day schools, those who are connected in the synagogues like Beth Israel, and then 40% of those students are unaffiliated. So
40%.
as you draw down those numbers, so in the way it's like, wow, 700, that's a lot. But we actually think it's a much smaller, manageable number, that it might be somewhere like more like in the 200s range that are not affiliated. So how can we reach out to those people? How can we find them and connect them? And also, for the ones who are connected, how can we connect them more? The more experiences, the more enrichment, the deeper it is, the better.
That's what an educational capacity builder does.
Exactly.
And that's what Debbie does when the phone rings.
Exactly.
So I'm just, let me.
And another piece of that too is our work with a lot of the grants that we get through the Jewish Education Center. We use not just for members of our congregation, which is wonderful, but to also as an outreach, knowing that there are families out there, and a lot of my focus in the past couple of years have been young families, connecting them. They are not necessarily ready to join a congregation yet, and I think your numbers are showing that. Ready to be affiliated, perhaps one day they will be, but at this point, it's building those relationships, providing meaningful experiences for them to learn, to connect with other young families, and really developed a greater sense of their Jewish identity, however that might be expressed. But through my work with them and the conversations with them, and I'm sure you're finding the same thing through your studies, is that people are just right now looking for different ways to express their spirituality, whatever you want to call it, their Jewish identity. So it's not for me, no judgment, but I want to, again, part of this innovation, we really have to be forward-thinking, creative, flexible, and recognizing that there are a lot of families out there. It's not just a West Side thing, it's probably East Side as well. And what can we give them to create really enriching experiences and keep them part of our community?
So as we sit here, we're almost the end of 2025, you have your 5 years in your position. Do you contemplate that you're ahead of the curve? Are they catching up with you? Or do you think you're at the right pace? I guess the bigger question is, are you okay with how you're doing in your difficult position with everything we've talked about so far?
So it depends on the day and also the time of the day. And
Okay.
I'm the kind of person, I think Debbie's kind of set this way too. I am, there are like multiple glasses, so I feel like very happy of all the things we're doing. I'm really proud. I'm excited for my colleagues. I see the incredible work they're doing, and also I have a very big appetite. I know we can do more.
Okay.
And I could get very impatient, right? Like, we should be doing more. How can we do more? And how is it that we can partner together? And what's realistic? So I often talk with Marlon, our CEO, about like what is possible, and we want to push beyond. And I did this with my predecessor, Nechama Moskowitz, who had a similar type position where at the JEC before me. What is that like what's possible? And you want to kind of go like, here's the point of possibility. You want to go over the edge. and then pull back so you're not completely detached and you don't want to fall off a cliff, right? And it's very hard to achieve that. So some days I feel really good about it, and some days I'm disappointed, and I want to kind of be constantly feeling that pressure and moving between.
So there's two concepts to our last bit of time here. The first concept is the Aesop fable of the boy cries wolf. And the boy cries
Right.
wolf, and the boy cries wolf. And people get tired of hearing the boy cry wolf. And then guess what happens? There's a wolf, and no one pays any attention. On the other side is a wonderful term, I don't know who created it, called a canary in a coal mine. Canary in a coal mine says, look, when we leave the coal mine at night, we're going to put a canary down there. And if that poor canary is dead in the morning, we don't go back in because something really, really, really is wrong. So those are the two theories that I want you to think about as we get into this last one. Are we just talking and really isn't a problem? Or, oh my gosh, is there a problem with the following issues that I want to raise with you? One is the great issue of the smartphone. As a friend of mine recently told me, is it the wrongest thing the humans ever did to create a smartphone? So think about what I just said as the beginning of the question. How does today's interconnected internet, TikTok, every other part of it, how does all that work into the burdens that both of you face? You go first, Rabbi.
Okay. Fabulous question. Thank you. And these are exactly the kinds of things that we talk about and we think about. So, I'm sitting here. I have my notes on my phone. And why do I have my notes on my phone? Because I have the connection to the study that I have. Also, if I want to look up a quote in Talmud, I have it here on my phone, and I can read it, right? So that is wonderful. And part of it is thinking about this is a tool. So does it raise problematic issues? Does it raise challenges? Does it make our work more difficult in a way? Sometimes we'll joke, like, if you have a question, just ask Rabbi Google. Rabbi Google can give you that answer, no problem. So, like, why do I have to call Rabbi Brown? Why do I need to call Debbie Chessin to ask these questions? There is a reason. It will, it's meant to be a tool for us. And even with these questions about AI and AI in education,
Yes.
it's not that we think like, oh, is it going to replace us? Although sometimes I think, I don't know, is this going to replace us? But how can we harness it? How can we use it? How do we need to adapt to understand it? Because it's part of our world. And again, you can go in here and you can find answers. You can watch things online. Nothing replaces person-to-person connection and those experiences. So we need to be nimble about it. And I think sometimes it's good to cry wolf, and I think sometimes, yes, let's just send the canary down and see where we are and kind of discern where the right place is and the pacing that we should be. We just last week had a conversation about should we be doing some type of a workshop or trainings or discussions about AI with our educators? And if we do that, how are we doing it?
Debbie, do you have any possible
thoughts?
difference?
I don't. I think you summed up pretty much what I was going to say. I think artificial intelligence and Google, all these different resources, there are resources, they're tools. And it's wonderful for quick information, but I think you said it best. And this goes back to how Jewish people used to study centuries ago. And, Chavruta, really, that person-to-person connection. And while our phones, our computers, whatever, great sources of information, it doesn't take the place of truly being together and building relationships. There is nothing like, for me, being in a room filled with children and families and the learning together, the laughing, whatever. You can't get that on a phone. And so it's a balancing act.
And that, I think, is part of the burden when we have less synagogues, less people attending synagogue, less people interested in being in a synagogue. Are we just losing Jews because we're losing Jews to another form of Judaism? Or are we really losing Jews?
So what's interesting, in the 90s, there were studies that came out, and there were concerns with interfaith marriage, that people would get married, and Judaism, this is the beginning of the end, right? And what we found is the exact opposite. What we found is that it has enriched Judaism, and people who are in families that are Jewish families, non-Jewish partner, practicing, not practicing, they are connecting with Judaism and want to be involved. One of the things that we really think about is we think about combining together and thinking about how all of the ways you can be Jewish can connect together and provide further support, enrichment, and challenge. So we know not as many people are connecting to synagogues. That number has gone down. Okay, how are people connecting? What are the things they're doing?
I see.
Are they going to PJ Library programs and events? Are they going to these Shorish programs? Are they involved in J-Hub experiences, which is also part of the JEC,
Sure.
and they do outreach to interfaith families? And how can we leverage it and connect it together? So, and there will be other kinds of things that we'll experiment with to try and connect and reach people where they are.
And I see that's becoming a new role. In addition to my regular role, I find a huge part of what I'm doing now is really just trying to learn how to be a connector and think and be creative, be flexible in terms of we have to think out of the box and create experiences that families are interested in. It may or may not be in a synagogue. And so I think this is really an important part of our work, and I would like to say in other congregations as well, is that people are looking, as I come back to, it's relationships, and really creating those type of learning experiences, programs that are relevant to them, bring them joy, and make them feel connected to others in the Jewish community.
And this doesn't, the forward thinking is what I'm most impressed with the both of you. I'm used to it from Debbie, because nobody exudes confidence like Debbie Chessin.
Very true.
Under any level of circumstances, that grin and that we're gonna go through this is so obvious. But what I'm hearing from you is that capacity building sounds like such a burdenous position. But it sounds like there's enough to grasp onto here to maybe find some answers.
Yes, absolutely.
And that must make your job, I can't wait to get up in the morning and go do it.
Yeah, it's very exciting. And so I think the days where it's harder, and you said innovators don't find challenges. So the days when I wake up and I'm like, this is like so hard, I have to do this thing. There are also moments where there's opportunities for innovation. And
Yeah.
I don't have to think about and do this alone. I have partners. I have people like Debbie and other educators in the community who our passions, our interests are aligned. We want to work to strengthen and have more children who are being educated and enriched Jewishly, knowledge, spiritually. So it's not a solo practice, and also very connected with colleagues across the country who have that same passion and interest as well.
And you're a rabbi too.
Yes.
And whether we all like it, us laymen of the world, at some point in our life, we're like, okay, that person's a rabbi. You know, that I think there was some natural separateness. The rabbi's on the bima, congregation is down below. Part of your job, I think, is to create the fact that I'm a rabbi with my feet on the ground,
Right.
facing children's issues, for God's sake.
Yes. Yes.
And you must have great, I'm telling you, you should be so happy with the work that you're doing. You exude the confidence that I think people need to see.
Oh, thank you.
And without it, God knows where this temple would be. Maybe Rabbi later could answer that in a historical perspective, and Debbie knows it for today's perspective. But if, we Jews, we need confidence builders, and we need to see that the canary is alive in the morning. We may ignore the fact that somebody's crying wolf, but we got to have a canary out there alive in the morning. And I'm sensing through this interview that the JEC is going to make sure that it happens.
Thank you.
And I
I'm
hope
so
you
glad to hear
understand how
that.
much we all give to that scenario. I greatly appreciate your time this morning, Rabbi, and of course Debbie, who was in the building as well.
A pleasure.
You really have, I hope everybody's been enriched as much as I've been enriched by this conversation.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.